The Trump administration escalating attacks on universities. University of Virginia President James Ryan announcing today he will resign after facing pressure from Donald Trump's Justice Department. Ryan stepping aside to resolve the DOJ's investigation into the school's diversity practices after they threatened to withhold hundreds of millions of dollars in federal funding if he did not quit. Does that sound familiar? Other universities have already been targeted by the Trump administration and caved to its demands. But some schools like Harvard have fought back by filing legal challenges in court. Joining me now is Jason Johnson, politics professor at Morgan State University and MSNBC contributor. Jason, it's great to see you. UVA is the envy of many public schools around the country and world. To be able to force out a school leader beloved by much of the student body and alums like yourself,
right.
What does this represent to you?
This is authoritarianism, without question. We've said this about how this administration or really regime operates, but the idea of forcing out university presidents who do not want to abide by whatever sort of ideological motivations come out of this administration, that's what we talk about in Turkey. That's what we've talked about in places like Brazil and Argentina. And Antonio, I want to make this really clear. Not only has Jim Ryan been a very popular president amongst the students, he's done a good job, right? The university has saved money. The university has improved its rankings in U.S. News and World Report. It was always a public ivy up there with Berkeley and University of Michigan and Ohio State. But it is now, I think, like ranked second in the country for best bang for your buck. So this had nothing to do with whether or not he was doing a good job. It has to do with an internal coup by members of the Board of Visitors at the University of Virginia who wanted to get rid of him because they thought he was too woke, working with former UVA alumni who are in this administration who want to tear down universities because they know that'll be the birthplace of resisting this authoritarian regime.
What do you think they want to remake UVA into? What is the end goal here?
You know, I want to sort of semi-quote Jamel Bouie, who is another UVA alum whose work I read on a regular basis. You know, UVA used to be a finishing school for rich guys' sons in the 60s and 70s, right? It's where rich white people would send their kids who weren't going to accomplish anything, but they wanted a nice school. This is a university that did not allow women or black people into the undergraduate population until like 1971, 1972. That's what this administration wants to return it to. They want UVA to be the old Southern school that it used to be, where people sit around and drink mint juleps and harass women, and the black people there are the only ones, the only black people there are the people who are serving folks. That's what they want. But here's the thing, Antonia, it's not just about UVA. The attacks on Harvard, the attacks on Columbia, the attacks on NYU, I always knew that those big, well-endowed universities would be able to defend themselves. But those attacks were meant to make state schools like UVA capitulate faster. They were meant to go after the University of Akron's and the UT Austins, the places that have a less financial and legal ability to fight against this regime.
Well, speaking of Harvard, the Trump administration has indicated that the school is negotiating with them once again, that there may be an agreement at some point, although we know the legal battle continues. At this point, are people in higher education looking to that one school to fight this out until the very end for the next 3.5 years?
No, I mean, look, this is how any bully works, right? You go in and you punch the biggest kid in the cafeteria, and everybody else is just going to give you their sandwiches, right? It doesn't matter if Harvard is able to survive the bad faith attacks from the Trump administration. Every other school in the country knows they're not Harvard. Every other school in the country knows they don't have that kind of endowment. And if you can get university presidents to step down, and let's be clear, Jim Ryan, I've talked about how he was popular, but he was going to step down after next year anyway. So he was like, look, I'll leave early. But what that allows for is Glenn Youngkin and other conservative governors to say, well, wait a minute, if I can kneecap, if UVA can get kneecapped this way, well, what's Abbott going to do in Texas with UT Austin? And what's Brian Kemp going to do in Georgia? And what have we already seen at FAMU in Florida under DeSantis, right? That's the goal here. So whether or not people are looking to Harvard as sort of holding the line, there are going to be state schools throughout the country, especially with Republican governors, who know that they're going to be under threat next.
You know, I have heard the same from virtually every leader in higher education that I've spoken to in the course of covering this. They are very concerned about what is to come over the course of the next 3 years. Jason Johnson, thank you so much for joining tonight.